Celibacy was a hot topic of discussion for me this week as it came up in numerous conversations. I'm not sure what you all talk about with your friends, so I can only assume you talk about very similar concepts. In one of those conversations, I was speaking with a young man who was thinking about becoming a priest. He eventually said that he didn't feel that the Lord was calling him to the priesthood because he wanted to get married. He wanted a wife and a family. Now, that's a common line of reasoning, and it has come to be one of my favorites because it opens the door for my response. Yeah, so do I. Not so did I, as if that desire was like a case of the hiccups or a bad cold that was bothersome for a little while, but I eventually got over it. But so do I. That call to marriage and to family life has been there from the beginning. It was there in the garden, and it has remained universal ever since. In a number of other conversations, people are asking me, why doesn't the church get rid of celibacy? They say that it is an outdated practice. They claim that with marriage that would solve the problems of the priest scandals or the priest shortage. Now, the data and the statistics don't actually support that claim. Nevertheless, it remains a valid question. Why doesn't the church get rid of the discipline of celibacy, especially if marriage is the natural vocation for all men and women? Now, some people might respond to that question by saying that without the obligations of family life, it frees the priest up to be more available, to have more time to serve the people. Now, that's true, but there's got to be a better reason than that. If that's the only reason, then it's not worth the sacrifice. Now, don't get me wrong. I love y'all. But I am not willing to give up a family just to be more available to serve you. The truth is that the church invites us to be celibate, and hopefully will continue to do so because you need us to be celibate. Not to offer you more time, but to offer you a greater understanding for why you do what you do. Today we celebrate the solemnity of the Most Holy Trinity. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Trinity is the central mystery to the Christian faith. It's also the central mystery to the Christian life. A mystery is something that we can't fully grasp by human reason alone. Even by the help of divine revelation, we are still only barely scratching the surface. But that doesn't excuse us from attempting to penetrate deeper and deeper into this mystery. We can't simply put it on the shelf and resign ourselves to blissful ignorance. A mystery is not something that is excessively dark, but it's exceedingly bright. It's like the sun that we'll never be able to stare at directly, but progressively, little by little, we can open our eyes and open our minds to see and to understand the light of its truth. And then by that same light, we can see and understand everything else more clearly. Over time, people have given us analogies by which we are invited to hopefully understand this mystery of one God in three persons more clearly. Perhaps you have heard of some of these. They say it's like water in its three forms of ice, liquid, and steam. Or they say that the Trinity is like fire. It's a flame, heat, and light. Or like a plant. This is particularly one of my favorites, that it's like a plant in its roots, its shoots, and its fruits. Kind of catchy, I think. Or the one that is widely popular, which is the three-leaf clover. Now, all analogies fall short. They all limp a little bit, but these are actually borderline on heresy. So instead of those, let us use the analogy that God has given to us. Let us look through that lens into which he is welcoming us to see the inner life of God. And that analogy is the family. The family is the fundamental cell. It is the basic building block of society. There is no smaller unit. Now you might say, well, isn't the basic building block the individual? Can't you reduce that fundamental cell even smaller? And the answer is no. No, because an individual doesn't necessarily have to relate to anybody else. An individual can exist as an island unto themselves. I'm reminded of the times in which I was on busy and packed New York subway cars. All those people, and not a single one relating to anybody else. It's simply a collection of individuals. It's not a society in any stretch of that word. But a family, on the other hand, the members of that family necessarily have to relate to one another if they want to maintain their identity. A husband has to empty himself. He has to pour himself out for his wife, holding back nothing of himself for himself, but giving totally to her. The wife, if she wants to be a wife, must receive the totality of that gift and give herself back in its place. The fruits, one of the fruits of that exchange, of that love, is the begetting of children, a new person welcomed into that family. Now, nobody in a family is impoverished by emptying themselves because they are being filled simultaneously with the gift of the other. Nobody is lost when they give themselves away, because it's only in the sincere gift of self that we find ourselves. Now, as that family does on earth in time, God has been doing in heaven for all of eternity. The Father and the Son mutually giving themselves to the other. And the bond of love, that bond of unity, that shared love between them is the Holy Spirit. One divine family, three divine persons. So this earthly human family is meant to serve as a sign. It's meant to serve as a reflection of that heavenly divine family. And celibacy, for its part, serves as a bridge. It's meant to be a connection for us between that earthly sign and that heavenly reality. Because my celibacy is meant to remind you all that your earthly marriage, your earthly life is not all that there is. It's not your final goal, but that it is meant to lead you to. It's meant to point you to something much greater and beyond. Now, the devil knows that he can't attack God directly. That's utterly absurd. But he can attack the sign, that sign by which we are called to understand God more intimately, that is, the family. The devil can also attack the connection, the bridge that is meant to connect that earthly sign with its ultimate heavenly reality, and that is celibacy. And we've seen the way that the devil has attacked these things. He attacked celibacy through the priestly scandals that we've seen uncovered over these last 2 decades. He attacked celibacy by those men ordained to the priesthood that are not living up to their promises. But the devil also attacks families, and he attacks them by getting right into the heart and seeking to divide it there, by dividing the husband from the wife through things like infidelity, pornography, contraception, and divorce. But even on a much more subtle level, the devil tries to enter in order to disintegrate the communication by excessive use of technology, staring at devices rather than staring at the face of our beloved, or this perpetual busyness, always having to run around, never taking the opportunity just to sit down and to waste time with one another. Once the devil has been able to destroy these signs, the signs of marriage and celibacy, then he has also effectively destroyed the reality to which they point, namely the Trinity. And if he destroys the signs, well, then the devil ultimately wins the victory. If we forget God, if we forget the Creator, the creature becomes unintelligible. Our life makes no more sense anymore. But the reverse of that is also true, beginning a vicious cycle. Because if our life doesn't make sense anymore, if we don't know why we do what we do, especially within the context of marriage and family, then our lives become unintelligible, and God is quickly and easily forgotten.